Welcome to Night Errant. I'm Mother Nuggle, and I'm here with Wilna. And today we're gonna talk about when painting becomes work. Yeah.
Right.
And last Saturday you talked a lot about how your new army motivated you and inspired you to do more modeling and more painting, and that's not the whole story, is it?
I think we've all experienced the burnout, capital B, when it comes to painting.
I have.
100 plus miniatures.
Because Errant does that for
Yeah.
me. But yeah,
Okay,
the painter's block.
you're the lucky exception. The painter's block, yes. Obviously, painting an army is a huge amount of work. The average horde army is like, you have orcs, you have Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum, I'm sorry.
Or Paxis.
Yeah. Or Tyranid, Termagant armies, or what have you. You're easily going to paint 50 plus of the same basic miniature.
Ask Lesfar about his Skaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skaven armies, when you go into fantasy, yes.
He
definitely.
will never paint fur again.
There's a lot of dry brushing to be done. Saving grace.
But you do some commission painting.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
And first thought on commission painting is, yay, we're getting paid to do what we love to do, obviously. Hobbying, that actually gets you money, it gets you paid. Yay, what's not to love? It's a challenge in that you spend a lot of energy that you would otherwise spend on your hobby projects. You spend that on paying the bills, which means that the burnout is even more real to a very large extent.
It was in Sweden.
It's getting to around that time of the year. And I find that the more work I do, the less energy I have for working my own projects, which is problematic.
So when you do the commission painting, tell me about it. What do you do? You get the minis assembled, or does it come assembled, or do you do it yourself?
Depends.
It depends.
Some customers assemble their minis themselves, and then they ship them to me somehow, and then I paint them to.
And that's preferable.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Depending on the job.
Depending on the job, yes, very
Okay.
much so. I've had minis that were assembled
With a shovel?
with a shovel, basically. Yes. I've I'm trying not to out anyone here, but no, I once got a handful of Dark Elf Cold One knights where the knights were mounted like half an inch from the saddle, as they were glued onto the back of the saddle, so flying on top of it. And it was really well glued. So,
Job well done.
yes, so trying to pry them off just broke the saddle. This is not going to go well. Obviously, if someone wants me to assemble their minis for them, it's they're going to have to pay me for my time. So that's
But it's the same
downside.
if you have to tear
Disassemble
them apart and then
Yes.
assemble them again. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So
in some cases, it would actually save the money to have me assemble them.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, they'll be assembled right. I don't mean to blow my own horn here, but I've been assembling Games Workshop miniatures since '88.
also, I imagine that if you do a lot of painting, then you get pretty good at spotting mold lines and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Which you may not see if you're not used to do the painting yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm better at being economic, I guess, with the time spent. As in, some mold lines you can ignore because they're going to be on the inside of the mini, and you'll see those on the battlefield and so on and so forth. So, I mean, if you want a pro to do it, it's going to be. I mean, it's going to look good, but it also costs you. I mean, that goes.
Yeah.
It goes without saying. If you can assemble miniatures to a basic level, you can save money. If you want your minis commission painted, you can save money by assembling them yourself and shipping those on, and maybe saying, mentioning that if there are any mold lines, please remove those. And there are different levels all the way through, and there are different brands of miniatures. Obviously, some miniatures are easier to work on than others.
So, well, we just received this, and I'm guessing you are not a big fan of Forge World. I heard stories.
Oh God, I'm really not. It's horrifying, really, because I mean, the way Forge World brand themselves is they're collector's items. They're the expensive, the really cool minis, the limited edition, the whatever,
And they are cool.
They are, absolutely,
Yeah.
and they look great on the homepage. But when you get them in the mail, they maybe look less great than they do in the pictures. I've worked on a lot of Forge World models. The last 2 commission jobs I did were Shadow Spectres, Eldar, Forge World exclusives, and Death Core of Krieg.
Yes. Alright.
And
Forge
it
World,
was... Yes. And, I mean, you pay like 150% regular price, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Give or take.
Yeah.
But the resin minis are, I mean, they're full of bubbles, there are errors in the cast, there's a lot of flash, there's a lot of mold line work that needs to be done. And
resin.
Resin.
Yeah.
God. I mean, it's, the Krieg minis, I mean, they're extremely detailed minis, very tiny bits, like, belt pouches and stuff like that, down to a square millimeter, some of them. And they break from you painting them. But more than that, and they're, I mean, you need a lot of green stuff work. You need a lot of cleaning. You need a lot of mold line and flash removal, and it's a surprising amount of work for the price tag. I would expect, when I pay a 50% above regular GW prices, I would expect better work.
You pay for the design, but it is definitely not. Well, designed well.
The design's good. The follow through sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard
not
from
beginners miniatures.
Really not. And they say that, in all fairness, but I've heard from a couple of people who have worked at Forge World who have talked about the process of getting these ready to ship, and in many cases they need to churn out as many minis per hour as they can, and sometimes they send out minis that should not have been sold.
Yeah, okay.
And I mean,
that is surprising, because if people finally buy something at Forge World, they expect high quality, and they will be sending it back if it
it should be mentioned
does not live
that
up to expectations.
True. It should be mentioned that they also have pretty good customer service. So if people have legitimate complaints, my impression is that they tend to reimburse them, or they tend to send replacement minis if something is like really messed up. So that's something. But still, at that price tag, I expect them to get it right the first time.
Yeah. But you don't pay the price. You just paint them.
Yes.
And you do get paid for all that work.
Yes, but if a customer gives me a bag of Forge World bits and expect them to be turned into minis, then they're going to be disappointed when I tell them that, I spent like 5 hours extra because I had to repair this with green stuff.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get a happy customer.
Yeah. So what do you do? Well, how do you explain this to a customer? How do you tell them that, well, I can do this, but it does take time?
Like that, sort of. Yeah. Try to be as upfront about it as possible from the get-go, and mention that Forge World, you will have more assembly work. Yeah. Whether they want to do it themselves, absolutely fine, but if they want me to do it, then it's going to be a couple of extra hours.
Yes.
Depending on how many minis, of course. Okay. Example, last commission job I had, it was 46 models, and I spent 20 hours assembling them.
Darn. Yeah.
Which is a lot more than I would have spent on regular GW minis.
Okay.
Because cleaning, green stuff, repairing, and assembly of...
Not a big fan of Forge World these days.
Especially not the older designs, no. They are somewhat smaller than what we consider heroic miniatures these days.
Yes. That's my impression as well. This is Necromunda, so
well, yes, especially Necromunda. I mean, the later the game, the larger the minis tend to get. And a Death Corps of Krieg infantryman next to a regular like Cadian guardsman just looks tiny. The head is smaller, the gun is much more slim, the barrel is... Yeah, it's...
Do you drill out the barrels with miniatures?
Not in not the Death Corps ones. No, definitely
no.
not.
Okay. Would you do it if it were plastic?
Yes, absolutely. Always drill plastic, but also it should be mentioned that many Forge World models actually don't need drilling. Because the barrels are sort of pre-drilled. They don't. Yeah, okay. Many of them don't need drilling.
Okay. Cool.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But if they look like the bolters you see in plastic kits, I wouldn't dare try to drill many of the resin kits that I've seen. I mean, if with small enough drills, then yes, you can probably work around it, but you have to be really careful.
I can't see it.
You're trying to find the gun in there.
Yeah. There you go. Pre-drilled.
Yeah, this looks... this already has a nice looking barrel going on there.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, so now the minis are assembled. Then what do you do?
I paint them in bulk. I use a wet palette, which is one of my best tools, and I paint at least 10 at a time. I go with one colour, I spray them first obviously, and then I go with the innermost colours first, and then paint 10, 20, sometimes 40 at a time, if I can manage. It can get a bit demoralising if you go for
beyond
40 in one go, yes. Usually I tend to go with 10 or 20 in one in one go, and then I go one colour and the next colour, those 10 or those 20, and then wash, rinse, repeat.
So how often? Well, it depends on the minis and the quality, of course. But how often do you get that feeling of I'm done? Every day or every week or?
I'm done as in my brain hurts, so I'm done as in thank God this is over.
I was going for a more yay kind of feeling, but the last one. Because that's what you feel, I imagine, when you paint your own minis. I'm done!
Yes.
I know Laspa says it's quite depressing, because then he looks at the mini and, okay, this is as good as it gets. But I think most people will... now I can feel that it's awesome.
There is a feeling of accomplishment when I've finished an entire commissioned batch.
Okay, so the entire batch.
It's an entire batch, yes.
Okay.
If I get 46 models, I'm not going to get that feeling if I finish 10 of them. It's like all of it, as in this is what the customer is going to get. I'm wrapping them up, I'm getting them ready for shipment, whatever. And I get this feeling of I feel good about this.
Okay, yeah.
And imagining how the customer is going to react. As in, okay, so these 4 units are now ready and painted, and just getting them with the posts. And it's that's a pretty good feeling.
Okay.
But it is, I mean, I usually spend at least an hour in each mini, so it's 60 plus hours of work.
What standard? How nice are they for 1 hour? How much of a speed painter are you?
I'm getting better, but
course.
if I mean, practice helps obviously, but if I spend 1 hour in a mini, it's going to be a high tabletop standard.
Okay.
2 hours is, I don't know what you call that, pro painted, as in 2 hours is like a character model, something like that. Yes.
Okay.
If you want a whole unit painted, 2 hours for each model is going to be very, high detail.
Yeah. Okay.
But an hour per mini is something that you can be happy with. I wouldn't feel good about handing over work that I didn't expect the customer to be happy with.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I spend a couple of hours extra just to make sure.
So if people ask you, can't you just, I just need them fielded, can't you just use 20 minutes on each and it would be fine by me? Would you do it?
I have had someone ask me that actually.
Yeah.
And as a rule, no. I call it professional pride or something like that, but I don't feel like
put your name to it.
I don't want to put my name on something that doesn't make people go, yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah. Do you ever disagree with the color scheme chosen by the customer?
Yes.
I think I would. I'm not a painter. Don't look at me. I'm not a painter.
Yes, I do.
But
I try to make it work.
I mean, I sometimes disagree with the colors Errant chooses for me, and I have no say in that. But and then it ends up looking great anyway. But I can imagine if people want something purple, yellow, orange with a gold rim.
Yes.
Then you would go.
Yes. Well, I was in a situation like that recently. I had this large unit of Bulgarins, and the color scheme was, as a guy in a recent Lego movie put it, black or very dark grey. Yes. All of it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Sure.
Yeah. No. I mean, this looks better. This looks better in real life than it would on the table. Just
that's
saying.
a bit of colour.
There is.
Yeah.
But I mean, you make it work. I consider it a challenge because black is actually fairly difficult to make look good on a mini, especially when you're talking like whole units. So you try to come up with little details to make it work, something to make it pop, like the sleeves, make it pop, like the sleeves or the skin. Find some sort of contrast.
Yes.
I did a Raven Guard army recently, which is black on black. But then you have like yellow details that just catch your eye because you make it pop. Just overdoing the highlights a little bit, just extreme highlights here and there, and try to do the best you can with the grayscale. So as a rule, the customer is always right when it comes to color schemes. You can try to point out that it might look better if you want to do this. You can make suggestions, but if the customer goes, no, it has to look like this, then you have to make that look good.
Okay.
In the case of the Raven Guard, I ended up making a pretty good contrast with the bases, which is a way of working around that. If the model is somewhat monochromatic,
Batman.
Yes, as Raven Guard usually are. I ended up doing one of those Martian. What's it called? Martian Iron Crust, I think.
Games
the one
Workshop. That crackles.
Yes,
crackle
exactly.
medium stuff.
Yeah. With a Kindle Flame highlight, and ended up looking pretty good, ending up with a kind of cool contrast between the grayscales and the shot color underneath it. So you can make it work.
You can make it work.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you use Citadel paints?
I do. I'm moving on to Scale 75 these days, which is a Spanish brand. They make absolutely fantastic metallic paints. I have seen none better. The regular paints, some of them I still use Citadel for some of the work, for the regular colours, but for metallic, once I discovered scale 75, I have never looked back.
Okay.
Golden, the brass, the metal, all of them, the range is just spectacular. I can't recommend those enough.
Okay.
As regular paints, in some cases I still use Citadel because they may be overpriced, but they're also good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
And as I may have mentioned once or twice before, I don't like new things, so it took me a while to move on from Citadel. But the scale 75 metallics was so much better that it was not an issue.
Okay.
And I ended up buying the whole range, and I'm sort of getting to know that range these days. Especially if I get a commission job that says, can you copy this look? Can you make the rest of the army look like this model? Then if you're sticking to only Citadel models, then you may end up having to blend and mix a lot. But
Citadel
if you have several ranges...
Or Citadel paints?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you stick to one range, then you may have some trouble. If you have several ranges to choose between, it might be easy for you to hit the right shade without blending too much.
Yeah, and blending is problematic when you have to do 64 of the same.
Yes,
yeah,
of course. Even with a wet palette, it takes a while. And a lot of notes.
And a lot of notes.
Yes.
Notes are important. Yes.
So very long story made short, commission painting does take a lot of energy away from your own hobby projects. So try to organize your work, and I would say, and take notes. It sounds weird, but as in, how did I end up painting this army, and if the customer wants another unit that looks exactly the same, then how did I end up getting that shade of grey? It's going to help you a lot if you take notes.
I think all painters have that feeling sometimes when they go back to a project.
I imagine so. But if you're only painting your own army, you can probably remember what you did, but if you have 7 different armies that you're working on, then for God's sake, take notes.
Yeah. Definitely. Are you ever getting inspired when you do commission work for your own army?
Yes. Also, I'm learning a lot, I think. As in, I'm experimenting with different techniques when I work on different commission jobs. Wet blending, different ways of airbrushing and dry brushing, stuff like that.
So you use both airbrush and brushes, regular brushes?
Yeah, I do. You can save a lot of time with an airbrush if you paint a whole army at a time, especially when it comes to
undershading and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, I do know the words. I watch YouTube.
And when you need to do a lot of grayscale, then an airbrush can be a big help.
Yeah.
So that's helped me a lot. And I'm starting to use that on my own models now, sort of experimenting a bit with the commission work, and then using that for my own projects, or vice versa. So
your new teal blue army, is that a result of doing too much black? Well, yes. I ended up with that colour scheme, as in the sharp contrast between blue and teal. For both your own new army, for my Imperial Guards, both because I've done a lot of monochromatic work on my own armies and commission jobs, but also armies. I have a mainly black and white Space Marine army. You do? Yeah. I remember them as Smurfs. They're not Smurfs. They look a lot like Stormtroopers. Okay. Think Star Wars, but yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a bit of yellow there to pop, but it's very monochromatic. It's very cool. Yeah. But the blue and teal ended up because I was doing some research on what catches the eye, and some research on color theory. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there if you Google it. So the color triangle and such. Yeah. And the circle, really, as in opposing colors, contrasting colors, what works really well, and what does the movie industry do on their movie posters when they want something to pop? Pop. Yep.
It works on minis just as well as it does on movie posters.
Yes, teal and orange would be opposite. So teal and khaki.
Teal is kind of a khaki, so teal and blue are...
Teal and blue, really? Are they?
Yeah. If you take a look at like around this room, there are a lot of posters that use teal and blue.
Yes.
For contrasts, and I mean, take a look at the classic Star Wars posters. You will see teal or skin color, which is overdone a little bit with the highlights, and then a dark blue or sort of changing into light blue background.
I thought teal was that blue greenish color.
Teal's sort of like light brown, close to skin tone.
I thought it was dark turquoise something. No. And that is a thing I have realized with my friends, that well, as a linguist we are told when we first year that women have more names for colors than men. And
not if those men paint minis.
Exactly. and I'm totally lost when it comes to colors. So it's red, right? No, it's maroon. Okay.
Yeah, no, I've done a couple of those Facebook. How good are you at spotting color differences, slight color differences tests?
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm really good at it. And I think it has a lot to do with painting minis since '88.
And it's not those tests that always gives you 100% because they want you to share the result?
I don't think so. I tend to try to avoid those.
Okay, but would you recommend other people to strive to be commission painters?
Yes and no. It's a wonderful thing to be able to make money off your hobby, but it does take energy away from your creative output. So you need planning and you need discipline.
And I think we should round this up because now it's raining so much, so I can't really hear a thing.
Fair enough.
So, yes, I think this was it. Peace. Take care and bye-bye.
Right, and you were, of course, absolutely right. The word teal is not the word that I thought in my brain.
No.
I was thinking orange-ish, and teal, of course. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Teal is the bluish colour.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But
and I was right that opposite teal orange is in the color wheel.
Yes, I had mistaken the word entirely. But the teal and orange, or teal and amberish, yes, or like overdone with the contrasts of flesh tone and teal behind that, is what I was trying to say. You're absolutely right. I stand corrected, or sit corrected, as the case may be.
You sit corrected. Okay, and the linguist strikes